So thank you so much to all of you. I know that you came across this community in different ways, and I think that's the first important thing to say about EduSpots and how we work. So I will say that my role in this is going to be one of facilitation, not someone who's going to be here sharing my own knowledge, though at points I will dive in with some experiences I've had. Later on, Gertrude, who is one of our catalysts in EduSpots and is also a regional coordinator, is going to explain a bit more about EduSpots and how EduCitizens fits into this. But just wanted to share that we had so many applications for this community. I think there were over 120 applications from 30 different countries, which really, I think, gave me a huge sense of optimism about the world when there are so many educators out there all wanting to make sure that learners and adults in different ways have opportunities to engage in what it means to be an active citizen. And I think I'm going to give a bit of my background on active citizenship, just so you have a sense. But I want to frontline it by saying that I think that active citizenship education has so many forms. There isn't one way that it takes shape. There isn't one structure that it should have. Some of it's very embedded across whole school frameworks, others about sort of more individual projects, others is about its integration within a particular subject. Some of it is about how you teach skills like critical thinking. And so what I love about all of you here is that you'll soon find out that you all come from very different contexts, but I believe are probably united by some key shared values. So just to give a sense of my journey, I was a classroom teacher in the UK for 12 years, and I spent a lot of time thinking about how we can really enable students to develop the skills that they clearly want to develop in being kind of conscious everyday citizens that sometimes I found in schools, particularly in the UK, and this is where you'll all bring different cultural perspectives in this. I often found that kids thought of active citizenship as being about donating to charity or kind of having one-off projects. But the kind of mindset on active citizenship education I come into is enabling learners to understand that all of their actions, every single everyday action, what you eat, what you consume, what energy you use, how you relate with people, how you're engaged in your community, how you protect other people's rights, how you stand up on global issues, that all of these things come together to constitute what it means to be an active citizen. So in terms of the subject I taught philosophy, religious studies, and critical thinking and politics. So have a kind of interesting cluster of teaching experiences with critical thinking always at the heart. And I also had a role in a school where I was in charge of a large kind of service education program that involved 50 different community-based projects in the UK, working with community partners. And the key focus of how I try to approach it was from a learning mindset, that it not all being about what the student impacted in the community, but about what that student learnt in the process that they could then carry into their lives in different ways. So particularly part of the stimulus for me and the EduSpots team thinking it was a really important moment to start a group such as an EduCitizens group, particularly stemmed from what I think some of you have seen in the UK in terms of the recent anti-migration protests, where over 150,000 people, I believe I got the figure right, came together to protest against migration in the country and under the kind of banner of Unite the Kingdom. And I believe that people in this march come from different positions and backgrounds, but one thing is clear, that I think there needs to be more discussion on what it means to be a human in the world and to better understand different people's journeys of different forms, especially as migration and immigration will continue in the years ahead. And I'm sure that all of you here come from different contexts where you've had that pressing thought that active citizenship education sort of embedded with understanding and empathy is definitely needed, that we'll come to later in the session. So I don't know how familiar everyone in the group is with kind of more formalized definitions of citizenship education or what a global citizen is. And we'll cover this in future sessions where I know some people have, there are some people in the group who have deep research specialisms in this topic. But I also did a master's in international development and education that included several units on specifically development education or citizenship education. And I think this kind of definition from Oxfam is one that maybe everyone might loosely agree with in some senses, that a global citizen is someone who's aware of and understands the wider world and their place in it, that they take an active role in society, in their community, and work with others to make our planet more peaceful, sustainable and fairer. But you might, like me, think that this is maybe not enough. And I'm particularly personally interested in how critical thinking and understanding power comes into that discussion, how people can understand how the histories of the world have informed why some people have more power than others, why some people have better protected rights than others. So when I was thinking a lot about citizenship education in the past, I had these four ideas that I thought were really key to what it means to be an effective, active citizen, and for this to be embedded in education. And they were around critical literacy, so having the skills to really critically reflect on aspects like power or media literacy, and really understanding how to unpick narratives that exist and why they exist. The second one was accepting limited pluralism. So I think I've increasingly realized in the world that we can come into the world with blinkers on what a society should look like, or behaviors or values should look like. And I believe, and I hope, just to outline some rules of kind of working for this space, that we can all understand that we come from very different perspectives here, and that different values and systems have merit, though obviously there might be limits to this where we believe human rights, for example, are being abused. And so just to set some working principles for this space, I really hope that everyone feels comfortable to participate, that this is going to be very active. It's not going to involve much me talking like this generally, but that if you at any point do feel uncomfortable about what somebody has said, please raise it directly with me, either after the session or during the session, and we will as a group decide upon some key principles of working together. I think number three, you'll also definitely agree that the role of empathy always needs to be there alongside critical thinking. And then in our world, empathy and understanding and listening can go a long way, and can play more of an important role sometimes than all the critical and academic thought that there is. And then lastly, should be number four, nurturing a disposition towards responsible, informed, sorry for the spellings, and collaborative actions. So we obviously can't do this alone. That to create a better, more peaceful, fairer world, as UNESCO say, it's not the work of one person or one action, which is why in EduSpots we really believe in the power of community, both locally and networks, with this one stretching all across the world. So we don't really have any predetermined outcomes of what this community will be, but we'll speak a bit later about things that we hope it might constitute to some degree. So I want to make this session as much of a chance as possible for you to dig a bit deeper into what brought you here and what your link with citizenship education is in particular. So I'm going to immediately put you into breakout rooms, because with a big group, and I think generally we'll have more people than this, it's sometimes I find you get a better quality of conversation in groups. So I'm going to put you into groups of 3 and 4, and I'd love you to introduce yourself and particularly explain what brought you to EduCitizens. So why does this theme around active citizenship education, of which there are so many different strands, particularly appeal to you? And we'll probably do this for 10 minutes just to get a bit of a sense of this. Does anyone have any questions, or are we clear? Just to double check everyone's faces that everyone's still with me. Wonderful. Great. So emoji reactions are always wonderful. I'm just setting up the breakout rooms now, so you should be in groups of 3 and 4. And yeah, you should have the invite now. So maybe 10 minutes. And if someone in the group can be prepared to write some notes to feedback on the chat, that would be great. Hi, Avis. I realized I didn't see you till just now. Hopefully everybody has a link. Florentia, do you have a link? You should be in room 4.
Out, they're done. Like they're like, this doesn't work, the system's broken. And I think in a time when things feel crazy in a lot of places, you have power at local. And I think learning pathways to action starts in the classroom or at home a lot of the times. So I think active citizenship is really important.
Amazing. So feeding into kind of understanding of democracy at the student level, and the importance and role of voting and voting systems. Um, Anybody else a reflection on why this matters now? You can just jump in.
I think that we were talking about in our group just what we were doing, and I was saying that I work with quite privileged children, um, and they have aspirations of going on and becoming leaders and managers, and they want to be CEOs. They want to be kind of in the boardrooms, and I think that it's really important to find ways to make those give education opportunities to those children and teenagers who then will become the people that are controlling the global money, or have lots of influence when they are on boards and when they are CEOs, to make sure that where they are working is doing good and is not just kind of lining pockets of other people, but is actually being a good global citizen and is making the world a better and a fairer place. So any way that I can find to bring more global citizenship into my classroom, bring more awareness to teenagers of their privilege that I work with, is something that I'm very keen to do. And in this day and age, I think it can be so easy for privileged children to scroll on social media and become very self-absorbed and not really have an understanding of how privileged they are. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Thanks for sharing, Katie. And it's definitely fascinating how private schools often are the ones that do have the opportunities to have these service programs that enable them to create change, often sometimes for others and not with others, and certainly not always led by others. And that power dimension and them having awareness of that is so important. And as I think even some of the world's most privileged children, they really can grasp this and understand how to give up their privilege in different ways, if they're brought into a discussion in a certain way. I did have a hand, but I think he's just dropped off. Anybody else want to share a reflection? Why now? Hi, Manisha. I think, can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you. Am I audible?
You are
Great.
audible.
Uh,
Great to hear you.
so I grew up in a rural community here in Ghana, and until I came to uni in Accra, I think it took a long time for me to become aware of some opportunities, that were at my disposal, or even to support with my career growth. And so for really youth and remote communities here in Ghana, whereas we in Accra, in the very urban communities, are having access and opportunity to some are totally ignorant, like they have no clue, they have no awareness, um they don't have any idea of how to improve on their career, how to even go and become better persons or even role models in their community. So it's very essential with the work I do, in just creating awareness and exposing youth in rural communities, in the very remote communities, to essential opportunities that is at their disposal to support with their growth.
Amazing. Yeah, just love the link there between active citizenship and their own growth opportunities. And I think also sometimes people think global citizenship education is about acting in other countries or leading projects in other countries. But I think we even forget what a privilege it is to understand other countries and contexts, and that might not be something that some children in a community in rural Ghana might not have ever seen a traffic light before, let alone like know what
Yeah.
something the other side of the world looks like. Sebastian.
Yeah, just to add from what my colleague have alluded on why this is really matter. So yeah, just in additionality, I think the world is right now passing through different phases of commotion. I would say there has been a lot of economic crises that has been going on around the world. There's a lot of pandemic, in different places. There's been a lot of conflict going around the world, yeah, and things of such kind. So we want just to bridge these challenges by integrating our learners with we call it social emotional learning, or I'll just say compassion and integrity, where we can teach them to, be peace, bring peace to their, to their surrounding, to their classroom, having secured, learners and bring citizens where we can continue, embracing the entire piece to the country. But also we want just to create critical thinkers, students who can think critically and work into solving challenges and problems that are really existing. So it matters today because of what has been really going on, the phases and things that have been changing to the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would really struggle in today's world as a learner. I struggle enough today looking at the news and having to constantly critically reflect on it to see what's true, what's not, who's produced this video, where's it come from. And those are skills that are not embedded in every education system yet. Cameron, I think you were first.
So I think what I took from Sebastian's comment over there is that I feel almost that in Africa we are taking a very similar approach. We want our learners to be critically thinking, to think, to be able to problem solve, to be able to come up with solutions for the problems. I think in Africa we are very well exposed to extreme privilege versus completely rural and underprivileged scenarios and environments. And so, giving from a privileged environment, those children don't always necessarily realize the impact that giving has on the communities right beside you. Like you mentioned earlier, active citizenship doesn't just have to be outward and towards people beyond your borders, but rather the community right next to you that can feed off of you as well. So I think very similarly, we are all focused on, making sure that intervention goes into directions where we are aiding our own people and others at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. It's having that awareness of your local context and the level of equity in that context, but then also recognizing that I think, as Sebastian was pointing to, that our world is much more interconnected than it used to be. And there's a much higher chance now that something we do in our own context, whether it's our energy consumption or whether it's a particular political party we vote for, that could have repercussions for people all over the world. Okay, last two comments. I can see this is that we could keep going on this for a while. I think, John, you were next.
Okay, thank you very much once again. So, as someone who has been in underserved communities for some time, so I've realized that a lot of young people in most underserved communities, mostly they see themselves as passive or recipients of decisions. But then, with regards to this, we want them to become leaders. We want them to become problem solvers. They should become critical thinkers so that they change the narrative, they change the status quo. They take decisions on themselves and by themselves, try to come out with their own creative ways of solving their own problems. And also, with regards to active citizenship, we are also looking at a situation where children and the vulnerable people, so when we say the vulnerable people, the aged, women, persons with disability, and the excluded in general, where they know about their rights as far as protection is concerned. Because in recent times, we have seen women being abused, children being abused, and even aged being abused, but they don't know about their rights. So if someone is being abused, the person doesn't know the reporting channels. Who am I going to report it to? And it boils down to the fact that there is stigma in our communities, or there is fear, because at the end of the day, if I go to speak up, or if I'm being abused and I speak up about my situation, maybe the person is going to harm me. I think about 2 weeks ago, we had a situation where a 7-year-old girl child was defiled by an adult, but she couldn't speak up. So it was someone who came and reported that case to us, and we have taken it up. So currently, we are establishing child rights clubs in 30 schools in the Yindi diocese, where we can train these children to know about their rights as far as protection is concerned. So at the end of the day, if a child is being abused by someone, the person knows who to go and report to. So all these things are part of active citizenship. If a woman is abused, she knows where to report it. If the agent is abused, they know where to report it. So all these things are part of active citizenship, so that when you are abused, you know who to report it. Are you reporting to the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit? Are you reporting to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice? Are you reporting to a police service? Are you reporting to a child protection center? We want them to know about these rights as far as protection is concerned. And I see that as part of active citizenship.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I think it's so interesting there how you've shown that sometimes it's just knowledge that is key to be able to be protected as a citizen. But then you started by talking about the skills of problem solving and then the mindset of realizing that you can shape the world around you. That it's kind of a combination. I think people often talk about knowledge, skills, and mindset, and I think you just beautifully spoke through the importance of all three of them. I'm aware that time is running, so we might not have time for everyone. But Jane, I know you've been waiting.
No, that's okay. I think what I'm about to say probably echoes, what's been said before, but I think it is actually all about enabling children and young people to find their voice, to understand that they can have an opinion about what's happening in their communities and their countries and in the world, and that these opinions are valued. And I think more importantly, that they can actually take action and help to solve some of the challenges and to actually understand what's causing some of the problems. Whereas certainly those that we find ourselves working with predominantly, they're in a situation where they are brought up to believe that they must be passive and just accept everything that comes their way. Yeah. So, I think for me, that's what citizenship is all about knowing that you actually have a right to have a voice, and you can make the change. I know it's a terrible hackneyed old phrase, be the change you want to see, but they actually can do that.
Yeah, so it all comes down to agency, I think, is at the core of what you're saying, and how that space for agency is created in systems. We're going to have one more final thought on this one, as I haven't heard from them yet. Hamid, what do you think? Oh, Mariam?
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
All right. For me, I'm from a rural community, and then I do a lot of research. I'll normally go there to ask the children that are growing up what their basic needs are, what challenges they are facing, and how we could address them, especially the number of school dropouts and teenage pregnancy in my area is very high. So some of the challenges that they came out with is that, one, lack of resources in their education sector, because some of them, the facilities is not that good, and the parents also don't feel safe for sending their children into such facilities that something might even happen to them. And some of them, there's no role models, and they don't have any interest in going to school to even learn something that would help them in the society. But some few of them, what I learned that are now, let's say she's now in senior high school. I have one encounter with her. She said, right now, what is happening is that she's able to she's now learning fashion design. I think like those that will be sewing dresses. She said that there are some styles that she can do without anybody helping her, which is she know how to think, create her own design that give her a unique, let me say, a unique style that make people come to her to sew for them. And then other one is that because of such experiences or education background she's having, she's also able to, she's now friendly, like she's sociable friendly, and she helps the other people. So what kind, like me, I would say that active citizenship, okay, in her side, she's able to socialize with other people, whether they are family, they are not, and other religious bodies, whether Christianity, whether Islam, whether she's having friends across and even beyond that. And the other one is she's also helped the community children. She teach them how to also do their fashion, and it's creating an economic benefit for the community. So to my personal review and what I've learned from her, I think these three key things have helped her a lot. Thank you.
Oh, dear. Thank you. And I'm sure we all loved how you centered a student in that very explanation. So many different bits covered there in terms of her own role and contribution in society and her socialization with others. I'm just going to read Derek's comment, as I know he's in a noisy place. I don't want this to be not heard. So active citizenship education is important for preparing students to solve problems in community today and in the future. In my context as a teacher of biology and environmental science, actively engaging students is essential for identifying the pressing issues in our environment and contributing to drawing solutions. He's from Uganda, where we depend heavily on agriculture. And I definitely think science comes into a lot of this. I don't have a very strong science background, but there are rights and wrongs about the best way to do things sometimes that can be backed up, whether scientific evidence or different types of human science research work. I'm sorry that we're not going to hear time for everyone else's contributions. I promise there'll be lots of time in future sessions, as we just have a few other elements to move on to today. So I think we felt that it was important in this session, given that you're all coming into an EduSpots organised session, that you had a bit of a sense of what EduSpots is all about and how we as an organisation have active citizenship as basically our top line organisational aim. And I would love Gertrude, who herself has been an EduSpot catalyst, just to talk us through this, just so you all have some context in this session, which aims to be a bit of an introduction or a taster session for the EduCitizens community. Gertrude, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, everyone. Good day once again. So at EduSpot, what do? We connect, train, and equip local catalysts to drive positive change in their communities, and mainly beyond setting up the educational spaces in their community, we connect them on online, WhatsApp to be specific, to be able to address key needs. So our concept of a sport, right? A sport is an educational space. And today we have over 50 across Ghana and in Kenya. We are currently in 11 of the 16 regions. And just to give you a sense, all these sports were established or founded by local catalysts. And each of these sports comes with a unique story, but the underlying theme across them is education. And so as an example of one of the sports founders today, I started my space in rural Bolga because I grew up, there was no electricity, 90% of my community or the adults were not educated, so I had to struggle when it comes to homework, resources, and all that. So that was my drive behind setting up the space. And when you go throughout the entire network, you find different motivation for why the spaces are created. But at the heart of all those motivations, what makes us similar is around education. And so when these spaces are established, as an organization, beyond just ensuring that these spaces are up and running, we do offer educational strands that are tailored to address the needs of the communities. So you'd have clubs like Educate, which is looking at the young people's verbal communication and even literacy. You have clubs like Ignite Entity, which is about empowerment. And then you also have Keeping Sports Safe, which is compulsory for all in our network. And the reason is it's a strand that is looking at safety and also looking at how to ensure that both learners know their rights and they are safe while engaging with our resource. Then we also have sports leadership, which is one that is focusing on advancing the catalysts involved and ensuring that they are progressing their professional development. Now, one thing I will say is that across board on these platforms, we have consistent resources that we develop and share to help address the specific needs. And then we also have ongoing mentorship. And I have to say that I'll use my sport as an example, just to give you a sense. When the sports came about, my inspiration was just to have a space where there's resources. But one thing, and it's in line with the conversation we've had today, is that we thought, or my community thought, that this issue had to be addressed by some politician somewhere and all that. And that's why I love the quote that Kat shared about the Oxfam, about you being aware of your place in the world and what you do in it. And I think beyond the resources, that is what that space did for my community, because 5 years down the line, the community came together to support with resources. You'd have people who are not educated, but they donate their time, they donate their resources, like cleaning the spot, you name it. We had the assemblyman come in to donate a solar panel, solar lights to keep it safe and all of that. So just saying that beyond even that, the change of mindsets and the empowerment that those spaces have brought to it is why we believe that this is in line. And I'm really, really happy to hear everybody talking around the same team, and everybody particularly mentioning about the youth, because we believe that, and we know in Ghana that there's a real potential for youth leadership. So is there a last slide? I don't know.
I think that's all good. I think the next one's a bit more on education that I'll take on. But just as Gertrude said, it's been fascinating because we're here to learn as an EduSports team, and you'll meet several EduSports staff who are going to join. And it's fascinating that, I look at what John was saying about the importance of safeguarding, and that's something we're just really trying to embed even further in what we do. And then we've basically picked all of these different strands because they emerged from the communities as need. They were requested by the network at different points, but I think they all fit into different things that have been discussed in the conversation so far, with agency for students and catalyst being the key thing in EduSports, kind of igniting that sense of, I think someone else said, creativity, like what's possible for young people and people of all ages to do, as anyone at any age can get involved in EduSports. And just thought I would share this briefly as well, because I think this ties into a lot of the discussions we've had today, that this is EduSports learner profile. So we have a kind of, I think these are skill-based learner profile that fits alongside the national curriculum. So as Gertrude's mentioned, all of these are clubs that are run by Catalyst, but we're aiming for, alongside obviously like numeracy, basic literacy, and similarly, these kind of more skill or mindset orientated learner attributes, all feeding into active citizenship at the top. So you'll see being a committed lifelong learner, being digitally skilled. I think that can tune into what Sebastian's talking about, capable problem solvers. I think, John, you mentioned that, effective team players. I don't know if that's been covered yet, but collaboration is so important. Confident communicators, like how can you stand up for your rights or those of others without being confident in your communication, creative and caring. Like we always, with everything we do at EduSports, centre care and empathy, especially recognising the challenges that a lot of this sort of active citizenship work brings. And I think this sort of ties into the key philosophy as well from Paulo Freire, who, if you haven't read his work, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is quite an inspirational book that's informed elements of how EduSports works, but that he says to study is not to consume ideas, but to create and recreate. This idea that when, as teachers or facilitators, we're alongside students, so that's a constant cycle of active ideas creation between us, which we hope this community will be. So just to explain a little bit more in the last 5 minutes about where EduCitizens fits into EduSports, as I think I've had some people asking, where does this fit into EduSports' current network of spots? So firstly, our vision is of a world in which communities unite to create the futures that we want to see. And we think that word community can take many different forms. We often think of physical communities. In Ghana, they're currently physical spots, but we're also interested in exploring what online communities or communities joined by an area of interest might look like. Secondly, we're very keen, and it's a key part of our theory of change as an organisation, to collaborate and learn with other organisations. I think there's a big problem in the NGO sector with people standing in their own little pockets. And we, as an organisation, will always collaborate, support with anyone that we can, and have that as part of our core mindset. And lastly, it's towards part of this journey is hopefully towards a redevelopment of our online courses, which are going to focus on active citizenship and intercultural leadership as partly as part of a fellowship that I've been selected for with UNESCO, which is all about like how we can spread understanding of various intercultural skills in a world that is fast changing and moving in different ways. So basically, if you're still keen to continue with this session, this stream of sessions after joining this session, you are part of an experiment for EduSpots in that we are really curious to trial further what an online spot might look like. As I said earlier, this idea of bringing people together around a shared interest area rather than a shared geography. And we are not really sure of what this will look like. A core part of our model is that we enable communities to determine what they want to see rather than imposing our own ideas of how things should be. But we have some elements of our structure that we found to work effectively with physical spots, including we have a certain use of WhatsApp. So lots of you have given your WhatsApp numbers, and you'll see we have a certain approach to managing what are hopefully very participatory WhatsApp groups. We're also really keen on things being collaborative. So the idea for this community is that sessions would not be led by me every week, but by different members of the community with something to share or wanting to bring everyone together in collaboration on a topic. We also just thought online sessions, we're aware that people have different digital abilities of different kinds, so digital training might be part of it. Building community between people is always key, and that this, just to be sure on what everyone expects from this, we don't actually have any funding, particularly for this community. We won't be able to afford to bring people together in physical form or anything like that. We don't have any grant funding attached to this. This really is just a dream, an experiment of bringing wonderful people like you together and seeing what we can build from it. And this also draws from a recent community of practice we've been running on climate education with 10 amazing NGOs in Ghana that made us think that some of the skills we have as an organization in building community and solidarity, we thought, why don't we try doing this with a wider global reach in different ways? So the next steps ahead, we think because of the importance that we all have a shared understanding of how we work as a community, that we will be asking you to sign a code of conduct. I think this just affirms things. Hopefully everyone agrees in terms of how we conduct ourselves in meetings and confidentiality and similar. We may also be identifying leaders, so there'll be a bit on the survey I'll send you at some point. If you'd like to be one of the leaders of this group, we would rather that this group is led by the community rather than us, though we'll always be here to support. We'll also be looking for your input into what you'd like these sessions to be. We'll be looking at our ways of working, which we'll more clearly establish next time, and we'll be setting up a WhatsApp feed. I'm very keen to end on time, as that's not always my strength. I seem to exist in a slightly timeless way, but is there any final question that people have, something that you're burning to know, or a suggestion for the effective functioning of this group, which does hopefully involve 45 people? And I'll do a survey on the best times for everyone, as everyone's in different time zones all over the world, which has made this more complex than realized. I've been a teacher, so I know to do this like good 15-second pause where you hold in silence with people. I always take a bit of time to process. Great. So we will be following up with you. You'll probably hear from Florencia, who's our programs manager, who introduced herself at the start, who will be supporting with the facilitation of this group as well. She's just joined EduSpots, just to give a bit of context, that she will be presenting on everything to do with our education in future. But it really has been a pleasure to meet all of you. And I can already just feel the multi-dimensional learning that could result from this. I can already see that this is going to be more than ever that we imagined it could be. So thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much.
Same to you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, Anthony. Have a good day.
Same to you.